Hey guys, me and Wade here, back with another Borderlands video, and today I've finally finished my Amara build video, and I'm going to go through it with you guys today. So, we'll get straight to it. I'll start with the gear first. So you can see from my weapons that this build is very much a melee dominated build. We're doing a lot of melee damage, and that's why the Psycho Stabber is definitely on the list, because this has plus 340% melee damage, and this really helps out with the skills and elements that we are using. But the main gun we'll be using is the face puncher. We won't really use much else when it comes to actually using a gun. Because this is the only gun we're going to use, you want to make sure you get one of two anointments on it. So you want either gain 300% increased weapon damage against enemies above 90% health, or you want killing an enemy grants 5% weapon damage and reload speed for 25 seconds with this effect stacking. So you want either that anointment or the 390 anointment. Psycho Stabber we're just going to be using for when we punch our orb, and the Dark Army is for when things get a little bit shaky. So onto the shields, I'm using the Ward shield. This is purely because it has a effect on it where you get plus 80% melee damage when the shield is depleted. You also get 25% weapon damage, and this is just really helpful. Anointments on this, at this point in time, it doesn't really matter too much, but if you wanted another option for a shield, the Stinger is another really good option for Amara. I haven't farmed a good one yet because it can be a bit tricky to farm because you have to get it from the second raid mission, which, let's be honest, isn't great. So the Ward shield is a lot easier to farm and, in my opinion, works just a little bit better. From the class mod, I've got the Golden Rule because this has an ability where ever an enemy damages Amara, she gains increased action skill cooldown rate for a few seconds. So because we're very melee orientated and that's fed into our action skill, we're not doing that much damage with the guns apart from the face puncher. So cooldown rate is vital to this build, and you can see at the bottom for bonus damage I've got a 63% melee damage bonus, which is again vital to this. You want to get as much damage in that melee damage as possible, and so prioritize that, but you want to bear in mind you want action skill cooldown rate. The Golden Rule really helps out with this. Artifact, so I'm using a white elephant. This particular artifact that I've got has bonus melee damage and bonus action skill cooldown rate, which is pretty much the reason why I'm using it. The white elephant is definitely the artifact you want to use for Amara because melee attacks have a 30% chance to attach a sticky bomb, and they can do a ton amount of damage, and it just adds to that overall damage output. If you can get a knife drain white elephant, that would be great. That's quite hard to farm. At the moment I'm quite happy with this artifact because it's got melee damage and action skill cooldown rate, but I have got a knife drain artifact. It's just for rocket boots, which isn't too helpful, but you can see with the knife drain ability, all melee attacks return a portion of damage dealt as health. This includes shooting enemies with your face puncher. So if you're shooting, so because your face puncher is dealing just melee damage, it's getting all those melee bonuses. So it's getting the white elephant bonus, it's getting the knife drain bonus. So this is why if you can get a knife drain white elephant, you'll be getting health back when you shoot that gun, and you'll be getting sticky bombs attached to enemies when you shoot the face puncher. So that's really important to this build. For grenade mods, doesn't matter too much. I'm just using the light speed because I enjoy using the light speed. That's pretty much it. Right, on to the skills. Right, so I've gone quite heavy in the Enlightened Force skill tree. This is because I'm using the Orb of Elemental Energy, the Phase Flare ability. This is really good. I really enjoy using this at the moment. The Phase Flare ability is where Amara summons an orb of energy that deals constant elemental damage to nearby enemies. When I melee this orb, it flies towards enemies and it damages them. Additionally, every time Amara uses a melee attack on the orb, it gains increased damage based on Amara's melee damage output. So if I'm punching this orb with the Psycho Stabber, which has, like we said earlier, 340% melee damage, plus all the other melee damage I'm getting from the Golden Rule and the White Elephant, suddenly this orb is doing a ton of damage and can really devastate some hard hitting bosses. So melee damage and hitting this orb is vital to this build. We've got 1 point in Trusting Yourself. This skill isn't vital to this build. I've only put 1 point in this because I needed to go down the skill tree, but it doesn't hurt. It gives us reload speed and charge speed and weapon swap speed. It's not too bad. No mistakes in nature, so this is a really handy skill. So whenever Amara afflicts a status effect on an enemy, she gains increased melee damage for a short time. Because our orb is an elemental orb and can inflict status effects, it just makes us stronger and more melee damage output, which is handy. We've got Heavy Rain, so Amara's weapons gain increased projectile speed and splash damage. Wasn't vital to this build. Again, I was just trying to build down the tree, and splash damage is something to consider in the background while doing this build. We've got Ebb and Flow, so whenever Amara kills an enemy with a melee attack, she gains a portion of that damage dealt back as health. So that's just a little bit of health regen through our melee damage. Again, bear in mind all melee skills count towards the face puncher, so even though it says when Amara kills an enemy with a melee attack, shooting an enemy with our shotgun is a melee attack because it's a melee shotgun, so all counts. Got Combo Breaker, so killing an enemy with a melee damage has a chance to reset Amara's action skill. Again, this counts when shooting the face puncher, so when we're killing enemies with the face puncher, we're getting a 20% chance to reset our action skill cooldown, which is really handy because we really want that back as soon as possible. We've got Joyful Freedom, so after activating our action skill, Amara gains increased melee damage. Obviously we're going to go in there, we're getting an extra 70% of melee damage in that, so, and every time we punch that orb we're doing more and more damage, so that's really handy to have. Body and Mind, this is a kill skill, so Amara's melee attacks deal bonus splash damage for a short time. Not vital to the build, I've just put it on there for poops and giggles. But yeah, we're getting increased splash damage, and that does help out with having that Heavy Rain earlier because that's giving us 35%, so we're getting a little bit of splash damage just to help us out with some damage output. We've got Atman, so Amara gains increased skill damage, put 3 points in there, plus 27%, not going to complain. We've then got Clear the Mind, so this is another kill skill. After killing an enemy, Amara ignores enemies' elemental damage resistance for a short time. This does not affect elemental immunity though. So it does help out, especially when we're stuck with a certain element. I mean, every tree has like an augment on the side where you can change the element of your action skill. So in this skill tree, it's Cold-Hearted. This one doesn't have one, but you've got Fire in the Fist of Elements, and you've got Corrosive in Brawl. But and if you don't select one at all, which if I took that off, it's automatically Shock. So you've always got some sort of element going on for your action skill, no matter what. I mix and match them every now and then, but it's just something to bear in mind when you've got Clear the Mind going on. We've then got Expedite as our action skill augment. So this means whenever Amara kills an enemy with her action skill, we gain increased action skill cooldown rate. Again, that really helps for getting our orb back as soon as possible, and because it's doing so much damage anyway, you really do take advantage of it with this augment. So that's the one I would recommend, but you can mix and match up between whatever you want. Right, so Mystical Assault, we haven't got much points into this tree, so I'll go through it quite quickly. We've got Do Harm, so killing an enemy grants Amara a stack of rush Activating her action skill consumes all stacks. For every stack of rush consumed, Amara's action skill damage is temporarily increased. So it's just giving us a bit more action skill damage if we've got any bits of rush. It doesn't matter too much. Main reason why I'm in this tree is because I had some spare points and I wanted to get down to this Amara gains increased action cooldown rate with Relentless. So this is giving me an extra 10% cooldown rate. I have done builds in the past where I've got 5 points into it, but the points are more useful elsewhere at this point in time. But yeah, if you wanted to put more points in any skill, it's going to be this one, just to get that action skill cooldown rate a lot lower. But it's not vital because you have got Combo Breaker, which is the one where when we're killing an enemy we have a chance to reset the action skill. So it's not vital, but it just helps out. So on to Fist of Elements. We haven't got very many points in this tree either. We've got 5 points in Anima though. So what this does is, so Amara's status effect deals increased damage and over time can have increased duration. Her action skill status effect deals further increased damage. So we're just getting a little bit more of action skill status effect damage, which can be helpful depending on the element you've got in there at the moment. At the moment I've got fire. I mean, I do mix and match. Sometimes I use corrosive, sometimes I use shock, sometimes I use fire. They're normally the three I go to. It depends on the scenario, but yeah, it's a good skill to have, so we got it. The main skill we wanted from this tree though is Illuminated Fist, and what this is, so Amara gains increased melee damage and her melee damage is converted to her action skill element, and this is giving us an extra 75%. So for one skill point, this is definitely worth it. I know it's 6 in total, but this is for an extra 75% melee damage. We couldn't complain, we couldn't go wrong, so pretty happy with that. So we've gone a lot heavier in the Brawl skill tree, purely because this one is where you find most of the melee damage skills. So first one we've got is Route to Rise. Amara gains increased max health. Not important, I think I've just put points in there to work myself down the tree, so it is what it is. Personal space, Amara's weapons shots deal bonus damage based on the distance to a target. The closer the target, the greater the bonus. Because we're using the shotgun, the closer those enemies are to us while using the shotgun, we're getting an extra 54% damage as well as all that melee damage that we're doing, so really helpful for this build. We've then got Arms Deal, so Amara deals increased splash damage and takes reduced splash damage. I mentioned splash damage earlier in another skill tree. It just helps out with our damage output in general, really. So yeah, not too bad, and it's alright. We've then got Samsara, so whenever Amara deals damage to an enemy with her action skill, she adds a stack of Samsara. For every stack of Samsara, Amara gains increased gun damage and health regeneration for a few seconds. Stacks decay after a few seconds. So we're just getting gun damage and health regen from this, but it is overall a really helpful skill to have. We have got 3 points in Helping Hands, but they're from my class mod, so they're not vital. So I'm not going to go over this too much, and the same goes for Mindfulness. Again, not vital for the class mod, but overall it does help out. Mindfulness gives us a bit of movement speed and shield regeneration. Helping Hands gives us a bit of damage reduction, so it's alright for what it is, but it's not vital, hence why I haven't put any skill points in it myself. We've then got 1 skill point in Find Your Center. This is a really good skill for Amara because Amara gains increased melee damage, and that's an extra 100% melee damage we're getting. And again, that's all fired from our shotgun as well, so it's pretty amazing when you see it in action. But yeah, massively helpful. We've then got 1 with Nature, 5 points in this. Amara gains increased max health and elemental damage resistance to her action skill element. So this is why I normally use fire or shock or corrosive, because I find those are the elements that hurt me the most, and I'm getting 40% damage resistant from whatever one I've got equipped at the time. We've then got Jab Cross. whenever Amara deals melee damage to an enemy, she gains increased action and skill damage and increased gun damage for a few seconds. So again, because we're using the shotgun and that's inflicting the melee damage, and it also gets damage from the gun damage, that's just helping us out all over the place, along with helping us out with our action skill damage. So not bad to have. I've only got 3 points in it because I had to shuffle points elsewhere, but really good to have. We've then got 1 point in Guardian Angel, so this is really good to have at this point in time, because whenever Amara enters Fight for Your Life, she gains a second wind immediately and restores her health and creates an action skill Elemental Nova. So this is really handy because even though we don't go down that often, it does sometimes happen, rarely, because I haven't got that Knife Drain artifact at the moment, and this has got a long cooldown rate, so it's handy for when I need it, and I do recommend it. And if you do get a Knife Drain artifact, you don't necessarily need it, because that Knife Drain artifact will keep you alive for a lot longer, and you can put these skill points elsewhere. Like you can put that extra skill point in Jab Cross, for example. And I believe that is it for the build. So yeah, enjoy using this build, guys, and enjoy the rest of these clips of me using this build in action. I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe and check out my channel for more Wing It Away content. But for now, it's goodbye from me.